So let's take a look at a cool light. This is a overcast day, as we can see by the sky, or a very cloudy day, a day where there's no sunlight. This is what I would call a cooler light because the light is only coming from the sky and it's coming from all 360 degrees. And as we sample the sky, we can see it's this kind of grayish blue. It's definitely completely opposite of the sun, which was like over here, right? This time we're dealing with a bluish light, which is called a cooler light. So let's do our study. And the other thing interesting about this photo is as I sample everything in the light, it's a little harder to determine what's in light. And the way you do it when the light is so soft like this, like overcast light makes a very diffuse kind of light, very soft light. The way to determine what's in light is anything that's clearly facing up. So like the sand, I'm not going to just pick any sand because these footsteps are going to actually create some shadows. But in this area, I can get things that face up. And when I sample the grass here, the weeds, whatever those are, anything that's clearly going to get light directly from the sky, I'm going to sample that. And this is interesting because the reeds is actually a warm local color. It's kind of an orangey kind of vegetation, right? So this is going to be an interesting task. How does a orange become cooler? And we'll find out in a second. But first, I'm, like I did before, shutting off my brain, and I'm just sampling colors that I think are in the light. And now let's get into shadow. Now, shadow, again, it's a little harder to ascertain what's in shadow, and just look at the form. It's whatever turns under, right? So any part of that grass that's facing the planes that are facing away, it's going to be in shadow. Even the sand will have shadow, like where the footprints are. So now that we have our sampling part done, we can go to the analytics phase. Let's bring up our color picker. And I like to hide the photograph just so we're not focused on it. We're looking at what we've sampled. And I'll start with the light, just like I did before. Now let's look at, first of all, let's take the sand colors. These are the sand colors that I sampled. And look at that. It's, when you think sand, you probably think brown, right? You probably think it's got a brown local color. But look at how wrong that assumption would be in this light. This is a cooler light. We determined that the light temperature from the sky is around here. I just sampled the sky to get this. So if this is like the color of our bully, well, it's taking what is, brownish sand and pulling it. So let's say the local color of sand, you might say, is like this. Our sky, the bully, is pulling that so strongly up into the blues. And we can see how much influence that cool light has had. Now let's look at the grass, the orange grass stuff. Okay, now this is a little different because this is, like I said, a local color that is warm already. It's kind of warm by default. And you look at that and you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of a warm color. Is this going to break your rules? Well, no, because look at this. Now as I sample a shadow, watch what happens. Look at that. See how much warmer the shadows got? Again, I'll go back to light. Here was light, and here's shadow. You can see a clear difference. Light, shadow. You can see the light, two things happen in the light. One is the color wheel goes ever so subtly toward, like away from the warms. It's traveling up. It's traveling this way. Now it's not getting very far because that grass is so orange. Its local color is so orange. The light, because the light is kind of weaker, the bully is a little weaker in this case. It's fighting that grass, but it's not carrying it all the way to blue. The sand has no local color of its own. I mean, it's very grayish already, so the bully is going to be able to pull it towards blues a lot more successfully. But because that grass is so orange, the blue light is going to pull it towards blue, but only a little bit. Okay, but the trend is definitely clear when you sample the light and shadow. That light. Look at the color strip here. Look at the color wheel. This is shadow. And this is light. See how it's going toward the blues? And as it goes towards those blues, it's also getting grayer. This is very similar to the color movement we explored in Chapter 1. And in fact, Chapter 3 is going to dive us into grays even more. For now, though, let's continue on with cool light and do a little demonstration. As you can see, this photograph is lit with the same overcast bluish grayish sky, same as our swatch study previously. which means that the grass, the greens, and the oranges in that grass are going to be cooler up top and warmer as they turn under. And this has water as well, which I'll show you a basic principle for water. So again, I'm just doing my basic line drawing, blocking in the composition. I'm going to work with values and color at the same time this time, just to show you a more representative process of how I actually work. So just blocking in the elements of the composition. I like to work in red, just it's a preferred color. It mixes with paint easily. And as usual, I'll start with the sky, kind of this grayish, cool gray up there. Mix in a few different temperatures of that sky, maybe a little warmer in the horizon. It's kind of a classic thing, but again, very subtle grays, right? Then I'll work into the distance. My goal is not to copy color for color. I'm just trying to understand the relationships, and then I'll actually start pushing them even further. So painting water like this is easy. The water is just a reflection of the sky, so it's a very light value. Here are some warm shadows coming in. So this is what I usually do, actually. I work with the shadows first a lot. So some warm shadows coming in. These are warm greens. I would term those warm greens. Greens that err on yellow and red, like that side of green. And then, of course, what that does is it leaves me room to both gray off the color for the cool top, which you can see right now, and also shift it towards the blues on the hue strip. It's subtle, it's a subtle shift, but it's a shift nonetheless. Okay, and the thing I like about this photo is there are a few different colors in the grass. It's not just green grass. There's like dead grass that's orange and different kinds of reeds that make all different kinds of temperatures like I'm laying in right now. Notice I'm relatively in the grays still. I'm just playing with the, and of course my Wacom tablet is adding opacity to it. Sometimes I will pick a more saturated color than I intend, and then with my tablet's pressure sensitivity, I can mix it accordingly. Kind of mixing colors on the canvas. So you can see how in the grass I've established a basic relationship of cooler lights, that is grayer and colder greens, and gray down oranges, and then warmer shadows, which are more saturated orangey greens. Trying to get the relationships correct. And at this point, I'm blocking in just some dark values in the background where the trees just catch the least amount of light. It's because they're perpendicular to the light. You know, if the sky is like a plane that's going horizontally through space, the trees are perpendicular to that. They're standing up and down, so they get the least amount of light, no matter if it's from the sun or from the cool light sky, whatever it is. The other thing about cool light in this case is at least in a overcast day scenario, is cooler light is very soft. It's a very soft light. So you don't have to worry about hard edge shapes. That actually makes it harder, more difficult, I should say, because the transitions have softer edges, and it's always harder to control softer edges. A hard edge is at least, it's a very identifiable edge. But in a cool light situation like this, you're dealing with soft edges. So I'll scribble the brush around. I'll make varieties of shapes. And I'll just try and get those colors to merge with softer edges, that's all. And you can see I'm doing that right now. I'm playing with the green, moving into the warmer oranges, but it's still a colder orange, right? It's not a very saturated hot orange. It's kind of a grayed down one, subdued. The cooler light is making the orange grass grayer. Okay, it's not making it blue because the blue light is not strong enough. That blue light, it's a bully, but it's not such a strong bully that it's going to bully it all the way to blue. It's not that strong. So it's going to bully it toward blue by means of going into the grays. So I'm just laying in just some, just darker values back there. Just light and shadow. I'm only using average light, average shadow in this whole painting. Notice the trees in the background have a basic, an average light and an average shadow shape. Notice the grass in the foreground has just average light up top, and then the average shadow that it transitions to when it meets the water. And of course, evaluating what the correct edge is to merge those two shapes appropriately. And suddenly you're compounding your fundamentals. You got good values and good color temperatures. And suddenly, now you're a painter. This is what painting is. Any good painter, I'm just adjusting levels here, just getting some help a little bit. I felt I was a little too light overall. Any good painter is just doing this, okay? Brushwork and all that stuff is secondary. This is what's really going on in their heads. And then, of course, your personal style overlays on top of this. Like how you choose to move the brush, that's totally up to you. And at this point, all the color temperatures are in place. I'm just doing some ancillary stuff. You might call it detail, just little very small shapes, right? In terms of big shape, medium, small shape, I'm just doing some small shapes right now just to get the illusion of detail in there. And just like that, we have a cool light study to complement our warm light study.